Everybody stand, pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Meeting of the Wahoo City Council, March 12th, 7 o'clock p.m. Open Meetings Act is on the wall. Meeting, call a meeting, ask for roll call.
Stuart Creechy.
Here.
Shane Sweet.
Here.
Brian Ideas.
Here.
Chris Raffle.
Here.
Pat Nagel. Carl Warford.
Okay, we do have a quorum. Anyone in the audience have something to bring to the council that's not on the agenda? Seeing none at this point. City Administrator.
Okay. So in your packet, there are a couple of reports. The first is the LARM annual report. I don't know if you had the opportunity to look through that, but I would encourage you to take a little time and look at that. It explains some of the financial indicators of LARM and the status. Can you pull it up for just a second, please, Christina? It talks about some of the percentages. I can't read that, but definitely take a look at it as it kind of indicates that LARM is in a great financial position currently. So we'll be revisiting that topic later in the year, but I wanted to share this with you. Joe's street report is in there as well. He was not able to make this meeting as he's at a conference or an training session for becoming a licensed street superintendent. So he's been studying a lot, and I'm sure that this program will help him, but the test is later in April. But if so, that would be the first time Wahoo would have a licensed street superintendent on our staff. It is a very difficult test to pass. I think they have a passing rate of about 25%. That's the last that I had heard. So, wow. Yeah. So, on to my report, which is I did hand out a copy, and I did add to your packet earlier today. I attended the morning coffee conversation at Saunders County Online, kind of in preparation for the radio station kicking off, and so that was a good opportunity to have some good conversation. Good kind of prep for down the road. I think it is something that would be great to participate in down the road. We can cover a variety of topics and have some conversations and hope to inform the public on things going on. I attended the League Midwinter Conference in Lincoln on February 26th and 27th. There was a legislative update. We heard a presentation by Mike Hilgers, and I will say to you that's the first time in all of my time attending these conferences where I actually heard an official in his capacity stand up and acknowledge that local government sometimes gets the raw end of the deal, but that we should be proud of the work that we do because it's impactful to every citizen in your community. So it was good to hear that in that kind of setting. I also presented on with a panel on how to discuss and explain potential impacts of EPIC, which is the petition drive that is, there's efforts underway to get that on the ballot. So that was first time I've ever presented, but I think it went over well. Project updates, Wilma Ridge. We're expecting our final pay application on the next agenda, and we're working on draft special assessments. North Highlands Phase 2, we held a pre-construction meeting last Friday, and the subcontractor for Collins, which is Thompson Construction, has moved in, and they're starting on their construction. We expect that work will take approximately a month, maybe a little bit longer. And streets are expected in July, so there'll be some time in there for all of that to settle and for the gas line to get installed by the utilities. Downtown stormwater study project. There were some hiccups. I think I explained to this before. in the data collection and the way it was labeled, which made it difficult to analyze. So we've worked through those, and we'll be meeting with JEO next week to review some of the findings and develop a list of work that's needed that we hope to have done either in conjunction with or prior to any of the water main work, so that we're in and out. And I don't know yet what that list is going to be, so I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We did get the final report on the TIF, downtown TIF, or blight and substandard report. We're in the middle of scheduling public hearings for final review and approval by the Planning Commission and City Council. LB 600 is one that is of interest to me on the Nebraska legislature. It created a grant called the Municipality Infrastructure Aid Act, which allows for, if you have a community redevelopment project that requires some significant infrastructure improvements, there's the opportunity to apply to Department of Economic Development for funding of some of that infrastructure. So I'm guessing if you had a very large, we're not talking about maybe real small projects, but if you had a $500,000 water line that was needed, which is going to cause a project maybe to exceed the value of tax increment financing, it's a new program, and so I'm excited to see how they roll that out. Just a reminder, members of the Nebraska National Guard will be in town tomorrow for kickoff of the inaugural community of the Community Partnership Program. And if you haven't seen, there's been a lot of social media posts about it. There's been some media stories put out tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. You're all welcome to attend the wreath laying ceremony at the Saunders County Veterans Memorial, and then 1:30 at the Lake Wahoo Education Building is the signing ceremony. There will be here 10:30 at the library a town hall style meeting for the Chamber of Commerce members, but I'm sure that you would be welcome to attend that as well. In case you haven't heard, Greater Wahoo Development Foundation was able to reach an agreement with the Casey's organization and purchase the building of the former location at 12th and Chestnut. That same day, they put out a request for proposals on lowest to realtors for redevelopment of the property. I'm sure most of you already know that timeline. I think the proposals are due May 1st, so we're hoping for something positive to happen in that location. The Assistance for Firefighters grant that you approved the agreement on last council meeting was submitted by the deadline. And at the Planning Commission meeting on March 7th, the Planning Commission recommended removal of the RMD district from our zoning regulations and kind of not replacing but adding the PUD. I know you heard from Kevin Anderson and some of the draft language at our last council meeting. A couple of things that I didn't include in the report. I have been working to try to maybe put together some things that are going to cause Wahoo in our regulations to change as city of the first class. And one of the first steps that I needed to figure out was what is that qualifying census count that will kick us over the 5,000, which is the city of the first class. And so in digging into some of that, there's two that can take place. The first is the census that happens every 10 years. The second is the American Community Survey that happens in our area, would be in 2025. So I guess that's something that I'd like you to think about. It's not mandatory, but it's just something that I guess maybe we need to be thinking about a little bit. 2025 is not really that far away. And the last thing, I know Stuart had asked about this, but the ambulance that was damaged in the accident, we have been working with claims adjuster, and there is a process that they're going through. This claim adjuster is the same adjuster that did the review on this ambulance when it was crashed in 2019, December of 2019. So he's familiar with the process. There's some things that they have to do to get to the point where they can support a full replacement. I don't know that we're to that point right now. They're having conversations about replacement of the cab and chassis and resetting the box. So it's all in the works. We are having good communications with the adjuster, and they're handling any potential issues as far as the accident goes. So nevertheless, we're looking at probably at least a year before that squad is replaced. We did have coverage on that in a category called an agreed upon amount, which it's a replacement cost coverage up to a certain amount. So we had $375,000 on that. So, and that included some of the mounted equipment inside of it, such as the loading system for the cots. That's anytime that's in an accident, it has to go through a recertification. So, any questions? Did that answer your question, Stuart?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it.
No questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. We'll go to the consent agenda. Number 4, is this a new position or just a different job description for the thrift store? It says new job description.
For the power plant intern. Number 4 is for a power plant intern.
Okay, no,
and then,
5.
Yeah, 5. No, those are not new job descriptions.
It's just,
It's well, I don't know, Kevin.
Yeah,
do you want
Kevin.
Do you have any? You want
Thoughts
to share
on-
any
On what?
on the thrift store pay?
No, it's just an adjustment that the senior board recommended, so this is coming from the senior board of directors or senior association board to recommending they would like to adjust pay rates for those 2 positions, simply because the manager position has been open now for a couple months, and the feedback they're getting is that the pay scale is too low to try to find quality candidates, so they are in favor of raising it. And keep in mind that those salaries are paid for by the senior board, okay? So that's their recommendation.
The proceeds from the thrift store go to cover the cost of those positions.
okay. I guess, yeah, kind of the process on that. Any questions on the consent agenda?
How many more drawdown? Is this final for the
This
grant
is
on
final.
consent? Okay,
Yes.
nice. Okay. Motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I got one.
That's unanimous. Any other comments? Roll call on the consent agenda.
Creachy,
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Grapple?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay, no public hearings, action items not requiring a public hearing. The first one is discussion of City of Wahoo cemetery regulations as per resolution 2022-02 as requested by Lori Sig. No expected action on that. The discussion, I think it's going to be a cemetery committee meeting.
Lori's here too.
Okay. Come forward if you would then.
Thank you.
State your name and I guess we know why you're here.
Thank you. My name is Lori Sieg, and when I lived in Wahoo, my name was Lori Meese. I graduated from high school a number of years ago and went to Pinnacle Bank Arena to watch the Warriors play. As a matter of fact, my grandson coached both Marcus Glock, and he also coached Maverick Binder? Binder? Okay, yeah, both of those when they played on the same AAU team.
Oh, okay.
Since my husband and I, he's originally from Lexington, but since we both lived in Omaha and Lincoln, and my family is mostly buried at the cemetery here, a number of years ago we decided to buy plots here. We rarely get to Lexington. We knew that our family would rarely get to Lexington, and we felt that this was an appropriate location. My parents, my grandparents, great-grandparents, and a number of other family members and friends are buried here. So we bought plots. At that time, we did not get a copy of any regulations or anything. And I see that this is dated different from when we bought the plot, so these were newer regulations. There were things, my husband developed a brain disease that caused hemorrhagic strokes, And so he declined over the years and suffered a stroke in mid-June and passed away in mid-July. And so we had our funeral here, and our funeral was in Lincoln, and our interment was here. He wanted two things. He wanted to make sure that he was cremated, and he also wanted to make sure that there were no plastic flowers on his grave, because his mother put plastic flowers on his dad's grave. So I've been trying to decide what to do. We were together almost 60 years, and so you get overcome by grief, and you don't exactly know what to do. So I've been looking at monuments that have little urns on the sides, you know, the little marble urns or the little bronze urns. And I've also understood from the sexton that you don't sell the big concrete urns anymore. One of my questions is, do you still do the bases for the urns if I purchase an urn someplace else? I understand that the sexton will take care of the base for any monument that I purchase, and the prices are here. And there's also a price for the base for an urn. So I want to know if I buy the urn someplace else, since they're not made here anymore, can I do that? Can I put the urn there? You still talk about the urn in your regulations, but you don't provide them anymore, and that's okay. You can get them at Lowe's or Menards or someplace. So that's one of my questions. And you'll see, I brought them to pass out, but you've got them on the board. It talks about the foundation and where one more page down. Thank you. There, the foundation's a little bit farther down. There is where it talks about the foundations for the concrete urn and how much it costs. And then on the next page, it talks about the size of those. 12 by 12 by 10 is the minimum size. And the markers are pretty standard. You can purchase your marker from any monument company, and etc. On the decorations and ornamental things on the final page of the regulation, there. If you'll notice, there's a lot of no's. No, you can't do this, and no, you can't do that, and no, you can't do this. I want to make sure that when I honor my husband and his life, that I don't subsequently violate your regulations. I bought a big pine wreath and put it on a stand at Christmas time for him. I came out about a week later and it was laying down. The stand was still there and it was under the wreath, but it was laying down. And as I stood where he is interned, I could see 6 or 8 or 10 more wreaths in the area. And I wasn't sure why that was. The more I thought about it since December, I think it's because his name on the little plaque that Roper's put out isn't anything that anybody recognized in Wahoo. He's not somebody that the sexton's family went to high school with, or they go to coffee with, or anything else. And so maybe that was why it was okay to put that wreath down instead of leaving it up as a Christmas decoration. My husband loved Christmas. We had 5 Christmas trees. So I want to know exactly what I can do and how I can do it to honor him. And I wasn't about to buy a $7,000 monument until I knew what was okay. And I wasn't about to buy a concrete urn until I knew what was okay. I understand that the sexton is a busy person and he can't police every grave to meet these regulations, but I felt picked on. That's a middle school phrase. and so I'm sorry I used it. But it was distressing at best. So, this is perhaps not the group to tell me what I can do. Perhaps it is the group that says, yes, you can buy an urn someplace else and bring it as long as the sexton puts together the base. So that's my concern. I came last time, which was a really interesting meeting. I loved hearing about your planning for making Wahoo bigger. Wahoo was this size when the whole 20 years I lived here, and it's certainly not like that anymore. I was very impressed with the planning that you and your cohorts make in preparing Wahoo for a Class 1 city. And you should be very proud of yourselves for what you do for running the city. But anyway, I wanted to kind of know what I can and cannot do. If you drive around the cemetery, there's a lot of things that don't meet these, and I understand that. I mean, I've seen what my sister puts on her son's grave in New York State, and you know, his friends leave beer caps and things, and that's not what I want to do. I just want to do something to honor him. So thank you for letting me bring it to your attention.
As a point of inquiry, when you're talking about I think it'd be number 7, the wreath stands or hooks, is what you're wanting is maybe an exception read into that for the holiday time frame?
I think that would be completely appropriate. Every florist, hardware store, garden and nursery store sells large wreaths and big, tall, 3-pronged stands
Yeah.
with wreath hooks on them. And it seems entirely appropriate to me to be there.
Can I offer a few comments?
Yeah, please.
I don't want to cut you off, are you?
No,
Okay.
I'm fine. I'm fine speaking. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming
Yeah, we-
forward.
Thank you.
So I guess I just want to make you guys aware that over the past, maybe beginning in August, there has been a little bit more effort in the enforcement of these regulations. And one of the reasons that is being done is because there have been comments received publicly that our cemetery looks terrible, that there's stuff everywhere. And I'm not in any way suggesting that what you have shared has anything to do with that. I don't know the situation about the wreath. We can talk about that internally, but what I can assure you is that with new staff, there's a lot of people that don't know the Wahoo names. Joe doesn't know the names, right? So there was, I can 100% say there was no intent of that. On the urns, one thing to keep in mind is we did build the bases and build the urns for quite a few years, and since they're on the market in other locations, we kind of have gotten out of that. I would agree, maybe we need to provide some clarification as to what's acceptable and what isn't. But I would like to work with Joe and maybe the cemetery committee that he has put together to come up with something that does provide the kind of clarification that you're looking for.
So there is a cemetery committee.
There is a cemetery committee, yes.
Next week, we're gonna try to do it today.
Next meeting. The next meeting
The next meeting, so we'll have big conference effort to bring it up to him and. see.
with the street committee.
Mhm,
at the
yeah.
same- yeah.
And to the point that there's a lot of no's on here, I agree, there's a lot of no's. It looks like you can't do anything. But I'm trying to, there are how many monuments?
5,500.
So 5,500 monuments that our staff has to mow around and trim up against weekly during the summertime. And so some of these things are on here because glass, for instance, can be damaged. You hit some of these things and they shred, and then you have a bigger mess to clean up. So I genuinely believe that our staff's goal is to make the cemetery look as clean and as nice as they can, so I'll leave it there. If you have any other questions, please let me.
Okay.
Again, thank you for coming forward, appreciate it. Next, number 2, agreement with JEO Consulting Group to complete preliminary trail design work for Maple Street Trail South. We're 30% design completion. Agreement.
Good evening. So if you hearken back to one of November's meetings, we had a discussion regarding all of the 6 routes that were proposed to get us to access and get us to start thinking about extending our trail system south from this location to Heritage and to those neighborhoods south of this downtown area. And so the route you chose was the one that would head down Maple Street here to jog over 2 blocks east to Linden, and then across the tracks, across the creek, down by Bishop Newman, and then take advantage of the abandoned rail corridor. So, and I told you at that time I'd be coming to you with a contract for a scope of services to begin that preliminary design process, and that's what I'm here for tonight, is to seek your approval for that scope of services that's outlined in the packet. This basically represents what would be considered a 30% design planning type of process. I don't necessarily want to go through all of everything they're including, but you can read through the fact they'll be doing some physical surveys of the physical features, identifying utility locations, topographic surveys. One of the more valuable parts of this will be to identify property lines and potentially easements that might be needed to be discussed or looked at, which is an important kind of that's an important thing that we can do ahead of time when the time does come to apply for funding, is to make sure we have our ducks in a row there. And one of those deliverables would be a list of potentially those properties or easements or acquisitions maybe that we would have to look at occurring, or those things would have to occur to make this happen. So that's an important part of this preliminary plan as well. The goal with this ultimately is to be in a position to apply for funding, specifically the TAP program, which is the big federally funded, trickling through the state program of funding, funding a project like this at an 80% rate, which would be important because part of this also is an opinion of cost. And if you remember the intern study last fall or last summer, they indicated that they anticipated this potential route to be potentially in that 7-figure range. So I think an 80% grant would be something that would obviously be necessary for us to be able to get this done. So at any rate, the time frame they would like to, if we gave them the notice to proceed here in March, they're looking at trying to get some preliminary design and that survey done later this summer, have something in place. And again, the goal would be to have this in place to put us in a position so we are ready to go and prepared to a very good level of getting that grant application put together. The TAP program was allocated out for multi-years, is what I've been informed by the state, in terms of there are not funds available for this fiscal cycle, which is okay, because honestly we're not prepared to apply for it, because right now would be the application time. My goal would be, hopefully, fingers crossed, they reopen it for 25 fiscal cycle. We would be then really well prepared to put that application forward and then go through that process of hopefully receiving funding. And as I mentioned, I think when you selected the route that you did, that route does check a lot of the boxes that they look at favorably in the grant application. Things like using abandoned rail corridors, things like connecting important civic points in the community, which would certainly be the downtown, the library, to Bishop Newman, St. Wenceslas, the neighborhoods to the south, and then also from a safety standpoint, pulling that pedestrian bicycle traffic off of the old highway, which is my number one goal, is to get that off of that old highway, off of Chestnut, I guess, and get it onto something much safer. So it's a good project that I think would be looked on very favorably when the time comes to apply for grant funding. Also keep in mind, this is something that would be funded. It was back in the budget preparation time last August. I presented this to the Finance Committee as part of my, again, proposal to use funding from the sales tax fund to use for this. And the price tag for this scope of services for this 30% design would be $28,000. So, are there any questions for me or anything else to add, Melissa? I think it's pretty straightforward. And again, it gets us to a really good point. In fact, it's probably going to put us in a position even more so, because the gentleman that's going to lead this up, his name is Brent Caesar, is how you pronounce that name if you look at the contract. We talked and he said what we did with that intern study honestly is a lot of what was necessary for the grant application. Doing this,
It was a good foundation.
Yeah, it was a huge foundation.
Great.
And this puts us really ahead of what other applications will have ready to go when the time comes. So I feel very good about getting this done now, preparing hopefully for a year from now, being in the middle of that application cycle. Fingers crossed that they reopen in 25.
So 30% design completion. 30% means there's 70% yet to go, or?
Well, I think it gets.
That's the whole project.
Yeah, we're not really getting into the weeds, Stu. So if you look at, for example, the exclusions, like for example, design beyond 30%. Okay, bidding, construction services, because there's some things that will still need to be done, like the environmental review, the wetlands, the bird surveys.
Oh, I get you.
That all becomes part of the final design plan and documents.
Okay.
Those would be things that then would be the next step
There it is.
once
Okay.
we receive funding. And that's the other part, is doing those things. The remaining 70% is a grant eligible cost. So we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, right? And incur this cost,
Right.
incur those costs before we know if we're going to be funded, because the grant will pay for those final design, 80% of those final design documents.
So the 28,000 comes out of your budget?
Sales tax budget, yeah, the sales tax fund,
Sales tax, okay.
correct.
Any questions, comments?
It needs to be done.
I agree.
think
I
it's a
agree.
good project. I would make a motion to approve the agreement. Is that what we're needing to get done? Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call on the agreement. Oh,
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
roll call.
Krejci?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Nothing yet?
No, I was just gonna ask Kevin if you have a copy you want me to sign now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Well, we'll go, item number 3, acceptance of the bids received and authorization for the mayor to sign agreement for hanging of City of Wahoo landfill cover for 3-year period.
Does anybody have any questions on the information that was in your packet? Last time we were kind of I guess in this regard, the haying at $150 a ton, I think we're doing okay on that, so.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
The rest of the stuff was not so great, but it's the way it goes.
The rest of
The
the-
farm ground.
Oh, when does that come back up again?
It's included in
It's
in there, yeah.
Okay.
We did an auction for it. We sent out multiple notices to people. We posted it in multiple locations. We ran it in the newspaper, and we had one person present to bid on the ground, so.
So you need an acceptance for just the hay?
Just the hay, yes. The other two are gonna go to their respective boards, the Board of Public Works and the Airport Authority.
Motion to accept.
I'll second.
Questions, comments? Roll call on the haying agreement.
Krejci?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Rappel?
Yes.
Okay, number 4, approval of ordinance to provide for renewal of conditional use permit for titled Sports Bar / the Beer Garden.
So this ordinance is just a renewal of the conditional use permit that we already have in place. We have a 12-month renewal for that. Literally nothing else is different in it.
Any complaints?
I don't think we've had any
I've
issues.
not received any.
We did talk about it briefly in the department head meeting last week, and there was nothing
Yeah.
from police.
That's good.
I'll make that motion that we approve the ordinance to renew the conditional use permit for titles
I'll second that. Is that for the same 12 months?
for the same 12 months.
Okay, questions,
That would be an introduction, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
introduction? Okay,
We're not able to waive because we don't have.
we don't have a
approval
quorum,
yet.
so we'll
So this will be an approval.
just to
for
vote
first
on
reading.
the first reading.
Okay. Rappel,
Yes.
Creachy?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Number 5, approval of ordinance to provide for a renewal of conditional use permit for Good Life Boutique for liquor sales.
Same,
Is it also 12 months?
also 12 months.
Again, no,
Same question.
no complaints. No.
Not a lot
Okay.
of, not a lot of Helligans going on.
And I'll make the same motion.
And I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, the first reading, we'll vote on that.
Rappel?
Yes.
Sweet? Oh,
Yes.
sorry, Creachy?
Yes.
Sweet?
Yes.
Ideas?
Yes.
Okay, Mayor's comments on items not listed on the agenda. First of all, I want to thank Stuart for filling in my place at the last meeting. I know one of the items that was discussed or brought to our attention is the annexation study. I did get a copy of the document, haven't looked through all of it yet. But it did come up in discussion in a private meeting in Jovan's office a couple days ago. Ryan Hurst was there also. And I think it's very important that we move forward with that annexation. Now, the 2025 document that you mentioned, does that allow us, or does that, we can at that point go first class?
So the American Community Survey is done in 2025. If the results of that survey, which wouldn't be available until 2026 probably,
Yeah.
did show that our population was over 5,000. By Nebraska statutes, we are allowed to move to city of the first class status.
Okay, so probably need to be, I guess, thinking about that, but I think in the meantime, and as a member of the NRD board, you're probably aware that there's some discussion about building a new office on the west side of the lake, which is east side of the area that we're considering for annexation.
It actually just came out in the construction ranks.
Pardon?
That actually was just listed in the construction ranks out there.
Yeah. So we talked about in the meeting in Jovan's office, the advantages and disadvantages to the city, and we also talked about that yesterday a little bit in the NRD meeting. There was no final decision either way on the construction of an office. Basically, sent back to committee to review the specs and meet with the contractor and see where we can fine tune it, what it amounts to. So, but they are aware of the value to them and the downside to them. I'm assuming we can keep that moving forward at some point in time.
Can we get information on what the pros and cons of moving from up to the city of a first class?
That's what
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
the things, right. I
Yeah.
think though, if you look through each area that was identified in our annexation study, there's only a couple of them that would change our population because,
Okay.
right, there's a lot of those areas that are not currently occupied properties.
Right.
Yeah, the big reason or the impetus to Jerry's point was move to a city of the first class. Your annexation process gets significantly more complicated. And the reason being because the process under the statute for first-class cities is it's not enough to have a general plan or idea how you're going to provide services to those affected areas. You have to have design renderings, cost estimates, all those things to be able to provide those services, and utilities being the big one, to those areas. And so if you're going to consider annexation of those areas, now rather than later would be better, is what it ultimately boils down to. That's not to say you should annex an area, otherwise you wouldn't, but if it is deemed an inevitability, you'd rather do it now.
Yeah.
That's my comments at this point. Any from the council?
Melissa, were you gonna check with our Kennedy campus
I
project?
didn't hear anything back. from
Okay,
him.
I was curious on if that was moving forward or not. I mean, I drive by that building and all the windows are blown out of it and,
Well, yeah, I know that, I think his next steps were roofing.
I don't remember.
I think
didn't know what
that's
he's doing.
what it was, and he wanted to be sure that weather would be supportive of that.
Okay.
Where are they at, and I know there's rumors swirling around, but where are they at on the old Wahoo Super? What's going on with that?
As soon as I have definitive information, I will share that with you.
But basically,
He has an approved redevelopment agreement.
yeah, from the city standpoint, it's approved to go, I believe. That's the first way to say it.
And both projects have timelines,
Yeah.
correct? So we have a stop point to have another discussion.
I guess one other thought, the city facilities committee has not met in the last 2 weeks. It's possible that we'll be able to get together before the next council meeting. Melissa and I talked a little bit about it, so we're ready on this side of it. So see if we can keep that moving forward. Any other comments? Not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
I'll second.